One final question, and this is just, expanding on what I said about, when I got into libertarian thinking. I hit a wall eventually where I started reading a book called Lost Rights by James Bovard. I'm sure you've heard of it. And it made me so angry, and Michael Bagnarek was right. It made him so angry he could only read it a chapter at a time. It made me so angry I could only read it a page at a time. And this is pre-9/11, abuses of the government. And I actually had to stop, and I actually helped him during his campaign and stuff, but I had to stop completely with all the political stuff. It took me several years to even get back into it because it wasn't making my life better. And I'm just amazed, I only discovered you this past year, and, I'm amazed by the serenity that you have and just the peace of mind you seem to have, and just, how you manage to stem and a lot of the negative emotions. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you handle that.
Let me just make sure I understand your question. So you have you feel a sense of rage or anger at the sort of powers that be, and that is something that is having a negative effect on your life. And your question is, how do I have less of that? Is that right?
Yeah, how to have less. I mean, obviously it took me some time to get back into it, and I've done a little better at it. But I just wanted to know, because obviously I think I want to get to where you are, and just the serenity you have. I mean, it doesn't consume me like it used to, but I'd like any weaponry you have would be helpful.
Yeah, look, I mean, I look, first of all, I am not immune to the feelings that you experience. I am not immune to the feelings of helplessness and great anger and a sense of injustice and sometimes horror at the world. So I don't want to pretend that I'm some, levitating philosophical Mr. Clean guy floating up above the clouds, looking at the skirmishes below and wondering why people get so bothered. Yes, there is, I think, a lot of elemental anger at the base of a rational philosophy, because it runs up against an irrational world so often. So I don't want to pretend that this doesn't occur for me, but I try to find ways to limit it. Mm-hmm. The first thing that I would recommend is a strong and rational sense of helplessness and despair. Yeah. That would be my very first counsel, which is to say that there is nothing in this world as immovable as ignorance, as hypocrisy in particular is immovable. If human beings really wanted to, we could move Mount Everest. I'm not saying it would be easy. I'm not saying a few people wouldn't put their backs out, but we could move Mount Everest. But we can't shift or move ignorance. Ignorance that believes it is knowledge. You can't debate irrationality. You cannot reason with prejudice. You cannot change the mind of the mindless. So that would be my very, very first thing, is to say there is no magic in your language that will wake people's brains from their slumbers.
Indeed.
There is no rhetorical trick. There is no magic. There is no wand. There is no lightsaber. There is nothing that is going to wake people up. The act of awakening is either a dogged personal choice, which is you've been following by pursuing you further into libertarianism and into voluntarism, or it is something that just happens without you even noticing it. Like it just, you say something in passing, it sticks in someone's head, and it just happens. Like I was reading this article about the architects for 9/11 Truth or whatever. He was just this guy, I can't remember his name. He's got like a 600-slide PowerPoint presentation, which he gives on 9/11. And the buildings, the inside job buildings falling down through some sort of controlled demolition and so on.
Right.
And I don't get into the 9/11 debate here, but what I did find interesting is that this guy said, my life was pretty boring. I had a wife and kids, and I went to work and designed malls and stuff. And I'm driving home one day, and I'm just like, hey, let's hear what the communists have to say. So he switches on some local communist radio station, and they're talking about 9/11. And he's on his way to a business appointment that's pretty important. He pulls the car over. His hands are shaking. He's sweating. He's like, oh, my God. He's late for his meeting. He doesn't care. He dives into this stuff. He loses his wife. He loses his kids. He loses his job. And why? Because he flipped a radio dial for 30 seconds. His life, right? So that stuff can happen. And, of course, these guys running the radio show, they don't know that this is occurring. They're just talking about what they believe or making their arguments, right? Right. So you don't know when I sound like Christopher Walken. You don't know, but you don't know when something you say is going to stick in someone's head and just blow the whole structure. blow the whole false structure apart, right?
Right.
And so that process of believing that we can will the change in the world is a fantasy. You cannot will the change in the world. You cannot politic the change in the world. I mean, the only people who support political action are the people who studiously avoid the general level of intelligence and education of the American public. You know, when you have more than 50% of people believing that an evil spirit walks the world tempting you with, you know, tits and ass and money and power and so on, then you are not in a situation where people are going to respond to rational arguments.
No, of course not.
So, you know, I think recognizing the limits, right? There's nothing that's going to shorten your lifespan faster than believing you can achieve something you cannot achieve, right? Which is my argument to people who are into politics or this sort of stuff, right? Because you then are in a state of perpetual frustration because you feel that you should be able to do something. Like if my model for human jumping was the $6 million man, I'd stand in front of a 12-foot wall and keep waiting for that sound. Sorry, you're way too young for this reference, but
no, I'm old enough.
You know, okay. So, and I'd be like, "What the hell's wrong with me? I keep bumping my. I should be able to do this." And so you keep doing it, and you get stuck there because you feel like you absolutely should be able to do it, but it's actually impossible.
Right.
And so you feel your self-esteem goes down, your level of frustration goes up, you alienate people around you, you become obsessed with this thing because you're trying to do something that can't be done. You can't change people's minds. I can't change people's minds.
You can lead a man to water, but you can't make him think, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can put some information out there, and people are either going to respond to it positively, or they're going to not give a damn, or they're going to respond in a hostile or destructive way. And I have no control over that. I have control over the quality and integrity of what it is that I put out. And even that is not perfect because, of course, I change my mind as new information comes along, which I think is the right thing to do. But
yeah, good.
Yeah, we don't, just give up. Give up and recognize that you can't do it. I think recognize that it's a multi-generational change. I think recognize that the best thing you can do is help parents and remind people of the voluntarism of adult relationships if they're in abusive relationships, to do those kinds of things, which is where real change in society, real lasting change in society comes from. And if they are standing in front of a 12-foot wall waiting for cheesy 70s special effects to lift them up to the top, then you can tell them that was a bad piece of science fiction. That is not reality. If the same way, if they're pounding lawn signs for Republican candidates, you can tell them this is bad 21st century science fiction. This is not reality. And, they'll either listen to you or they won't. But letting go of the need to control others, right? I mean, isn't that really what anarchism is letting go of the need to control others? And we have to show people what that looks like in our lives by letting go of our need to control them, to control what they think. Even if we're right and they're completely wrong, we have to let go. Let go of the need to control people. Let them make their own mistakes, even if those mistakes spill over onto us. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's ironic because, despising authority, both being under it and both, giving it unto others, I think that's obviously the important thing. Because, I definitely feel that and feel it both ways, but it's like, so why would I want to control others, basically, right?
Well, see, you say, why would I want to control others as if it's possible? Why would I want to jump unaided 12 feet up onto a brick wall? Well, no, you can't. It's not why you should or shouldn't, or whether you can't. You can't control others. You can't control others. You can't control others. And the best way, I believe, to convince someone of the value of voluntarism is to not try to control their thinking, to not try to control what they do. Because then you're showing what freedom looks like. Now, I don't mean be completely indifferent to what they're doing, right? I've got the against me argument and stuff, right, and all that. And there are consequences to what people believe, right? So if a friend of mine believes that I should be beating my daughter, there are consequences to those beliefs. But I do not have to convince him that his beliefs are false, because that is to make me his slave. The moment you try to control people, you become their slave.
Yeah.
There is nobody less free, my friend, than the ruling class.
Right.
There is nobody less free than the master, because the master is dependent upon the slave, but the slave is not dependent upon the master. And do not be people's slaves. Do not be drawn into... See, here I am trying to tell you what to do. But, my argument, you can do it or not, right? But I think that's a very strong argument, right? Don't try to control other people. Show people what a great life you can have if you let go of trying to manage other people's thinking. Let go of trying to manage other people's thoughts. Let go of trying to manage other people's reactions. Let go of whether people are right or wrong. And be certain in your own mind and in your own heart about the value and virtue of what you're doing as a human being.
All right, Steph. Thanks so much. It's a big help.
You're very welcome, my friend. Thank you for the call.
All right. No problem. Take care.